In this example, we'll show the impact of a tariff on the market for a product. We'll always start here with an importing market, since that's by far the most common type of market that we would see a tariff. And you can see that I've already worked out for us what's happening at the open trade point. So at the world price of 100, the quantity produced domestically is 25, the quantity consumed domestically is 100, and the difference would be imports. So here the country is importing 75 units with free open trade. And we want to analyze the impact of a tariff equal to $20 per unit. Just like when we had taxes, I will always just give you a per unit tariff because it really greatly simplifies the math here. So we want to say that for every unit that is purchased from abroad, you have to not only pay the price to the seller, but you also have to pay $20 to the government. So a tariff is just a tax on imports. So here, the function of that is really to increase the cost of importing, right? So now I not only have to pay $100 world price, but I also have to pay $20 to the government every time I want to import something. So I'm going to shift this line up. That's the world price plus the tariff. Okay. And the impact of that will be to decrease the quantity of imports, of course, since importing has become more expensive. And we can find the new quantity of imports by just plugging our new cost of importing into the supply and demand equations to find the quantity consumed and produced domestically now underneath the tariff. All right, so 120 equals 200 minus quantity demanded. And I can see that my quantity demanded with the tariff will be 80. Quantities supplied, I will get from my supply equation. So the quantities supplied will equal 35. And the new quantity of imports is the difference. So that's 80 minus 35, or 45. New imports, or imports prime, is equal to 45. So of course, when we tax something, people do it less. Same with imports. Now we want to think about how this tariff will affect the different groups within the market. So the impact of the tariff was to increase the price of the product. And you can see that, so consumer surplus with open trade would be equal to this big triangle here. At the new price of 120, then you can see that consumer surplus is decreasing. I think I used green before. So consumer surplus is now going to be equal to the area of this triangle above 120 and below the demand curve. And you'll notice that there is still some gains from trade here, right? We're better off than we were with a completely closed economy, but not as well off as with the completely open economy. And you can also see that producer surplus is increasing, right? With open trade, producer surplus was equal to this triangle below the world price and above the supply curve. But now that we've increased the price at which we can sell the product and allowed for more domestic production, producer surplus is increasing. So to answer this question, we will say that consumer surplus will decrease due to an increase in the price and a decrease in the quantity that people are able to consume. Producer surplus will increase due to an increase in the price and an increase in the quantity of the product that is produced domestically. And remember that this was really the goal of the policy. This was the policy's goal, right? To help domestic producers that might otherwise be negatively impacted by international trade. And then the question becomes, is it worth it, right? Like we want to think about the costs and the benefits. So the benefit of this tariff is that it increases producer surplus. Perhaps our goal was to help declining manufacturers or people who work at those plants. But we, in order to do that, have given up some consumer surplus. Now, as we start to calculate kind of total surplus, there is one other area that we need to take into account, and that's government revenue. Because this is a tax, the government will raise revenue as a result of the tariff. So government revenue would be equal to the amount of the tariff times the quantity of imports. So we said that this tariff is $20 per unit, and the new quantity of imports is 45. So in this instance, the government revenue from the tariff is $900. And we can label that on the graph. You see the height here, the distance between the two lines, that's the tariff. And then the width here is the quantity of imports. So government revenue from the tariff is equal to that rectangle in the middle there. And our deadweight loss then, if we think about comparing this area of total surplus to what we had with open trade, right? We used to have this whole area. You can see that we're missing these two triangles here on either side of government revenue. So those are our deadweight loss triangles. And I usually just try to label it like this, deadweight loss. So we can calculate the deadweight loss, the decline in surplus due to the restriction on the market, as 1/2 times the height of the triangle, which is 20, right? And then the width of the triangle, it's going to be different for each triangle. So you have to do 2 of them. All right. So here we have 35 minus 25, and then plus 1/2 times 20 times 100 minus 80. So if you plug all of that into your calculator, then you'll find that deadweight loss is equal to 100 plus 200 and that gives us $300 in deadweight loss.